This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
All right, hey, put the extra cup over there.
Right, I'm so excited. I love when we get new people in the house misdirected.
Yeah, while we've had guests before, we have not had a guest since lockdown.
Yeah, and, this is MMP family.
So in the bubble.
Yeah.
Well, true. But this is one of my favorite topics. And She's a Super Geek was one of the first two podcasts I ever listened to. Part of why got me into all of this.
Yeah. No, I can see that.
And I'm excited to get their input on gaming and IPs.
Hey, everybody. It's like a convention base camp up in here. Though after listening to the last few shows, I expected to see more donuts and or Timbits.
I could use a donut myself right now.
Yeah, Timbits would be really good right now. So
I don't think we have any in the whole state of Colorado, quite honestly. Sad.
Well, I'm not going to make a joke about eating more munchies in Colorado. Anyway, so with all that, welcome to the 428th episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast. This week, we continue our exploration of playing RPGs and published intellectual properties with the help and advice of guest star Andy Fox.
Hello.
Hey, and along the way, we're going to be taking questions, suggestions, examples from the chat room for life before jumping into the after show. But first, my name is Jerry.
My name is Phil.
My name is Andy.
And you know who I am, Old Man Logan. All right, kids. Before we can hit the lobby, we have to do our standard COVID times temperature check because we want to make sure everybody's in good shape before we walk into the house and hang out together for 2 hours or longer if we run long. You never know with Phil. That's the way it works. So we'll start with the guest. Andy, how you feeling?
Yes. I'm doing okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Mentally, physically, everything's awesome?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little tired from shoveling snow.
Oh, yeah, that'll do it.
Because we had a big old blizzard in Colorado, pretty much throughout the entire state, I think, so, over the weekend. And now we're getting more snow, so.
Oh, jeez. Just when you think it's over.
But then it'll be like 70 like next week.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. That's how it works.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Andy's good. Phil, how you feeling?
I am fine physically. I am junky mentally. Not feeling great. Got a little of the espresso depresso going. I've been kind of just exhausted from work and stuff. It's I don't know. It's also hit me. This is the 1 year.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it in the later in the community section and maybe in the after show. But this is officially 1 year. This is the anniversary of when my office locked down. Was today, and it's been a hell of a year. Like pandemic aside, like I don't think I've ever been this busy at work in the course of a year, and so I'm exhausted and on the edge of burnout, and I really can't take any days for a little while because one, pandemic, and two, I have a number of these high priority projects. So I'm just kind of riding it through, and I'm like, I am gonna get like a day off next week, but I'm pretty worn down right now. So mentally, give myself like a C-.
I'm gonna send you more videos of cute kittens then.
Yeah, that never hurts. Never hurts. At this point, I'm just kind of buffering against, just kind of slipping off and just turning into a cocoon on the couch. Babo, how about you?
I too am feeling the coronaversary. It's had its ups and downs, that's for sure. Mostly though, with the exception of that and a little frustration earlier today that I will possibly get into later, but it was nothing. It's just Disney Plus billing crap. I was a little frighteningly annoyed. But, hey, it is what it is. Physically, I feel pretty good. So, You know, I'm not discounting that. That's a good thing. How about you, Jerry?
I'm exhausted. I had a lot of fun last night playing online, and unfortunately, I was sitting here playing online with a small container full of chocolate Whoppers, and ate way too many while not paying attention to how many I was eating. And then, so last night I got up twice and was very sick about them. So I got like 3 hours sleep last night. So, but I had a good day at work, and I'm here with friends, and I'm all fired up. I'll just be dragging again tomorrow. So, but other than that, mentally, it is what it is. It's another week. I have a new employee, and they're working out very well. So that's just great. I've got a good staff. So the last 2 weeks at work have been excellent, busy, but lots and lots of people pulling together, and it always makes for a decent work day. So I feel better. So that's me.
All right, let's head on into the lobby then.
Everybody have their masks?
Yes.
I actually have a Star Wars mask somewhere, but I'm not sure where it is.
I probably have a very similar one that you have. I know mine's upstairs.
Hey, Jerry, try and put Darth Vader in the middle of your head.
What, for our podcast listeners, Bob is trying to tell Jerry how to line up with the camera to fit better in the stream.
You need to tell me which way to move the camera. So if you want me to move left, you need to tell the camera to move right. That's what I need to know, because I don't know.
Move towards Darth Vader.
I don't know how to move.
Camera left. You right.
My right. Okay.
There you go. That's better. Okay.
Now, don't move.
Yeah, we
For
know
the
how
next
much
We've got a
Yeah.
little less margin for error with these zoomed in 4 people thing.
you know how much likely that's going to be. So.
I'm cheating. My background has circles in it, so I just keep my head in the circles.
All right.
Anyway, we're on to one thing, right?
No, we're on to the
actually,
guest
no. First, we have to intro our guest.
That's
Oh,
right.
sure.
I mean, we all know Andy and are totally comfortable, but there's possibly some people who are listening to the podcast who don't know who Andy Fox is. So, Andy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Andy Fox.
Okay, but then tell us a little bit more.
Well, you probably know me from She's a Super Geek.
Mm-hmm.
You might know me from the Wednesday evening podcast All Stars, but I'm here more or less because I'm on the Redemption podcast, which is a Star Wars podcast. You can find them at redemptionpodcast.com or on Twitter at redemptionpod. And we are set in the Clone Wars era. So I have some strong feelings about playing in established IPs that I said last week, hey, I'd love to share with people, and Phil took me seriously, so here I am.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the fastest way to get on the show. It's like, hey, I'd like to be on the show. Done. We used to be terrible at having guests on when we were recording live, and we would have to bring somebody in. But now that, in these pandemic days, since the show's now all done on Zoom, other than Bob having to wrestle OBS, bringing you in like anyone else is like having anyone else on. So
yeah, which is great. I'm super excited to be here. Yeah. I'm a little intimidated. It's kind of funny.
No, intimidated rubbish. This is just us. You've known us. You've known us forever.
Andy, you've got like 3 times the podcast track that I had, and they took me in and I got through this. So you'll have no trouble. You've been on multiple podcasts, and I mean, you've GM'd on multiple podcasts. You've handled both podcasting and wrangling players, one of whom was Senda. So, I mean,
Well, see, here's what you need to know about Senda. If there's a love triangle, she will turn it into a love quadrilateral.
Exactly.
Or more.
Exactly.
Yes. Just let her do it.
I actually, after listening to this week's podcast, I still think that disaster pansexuals need to be another game. So,
oh, man.
And if you didn't get that, listen to this week's Pandas Talking Games.
There you go.
So, yes, it is a real podcast.
Yes.
Hey, it's a real podcast.
It's a real.
That was my gift to Senda when we finished Sasgeek, was I gave up my bit about pandas not being a
Pandas is 5 years old. Pandas is 5 years old this week.
Wow.
We only realized that while we were on the mics doing the math.
Mathing is hard. Oh.
Mathing is hard. All right, so now we can move over to one thing.
There we go.
Woo, one thing.
One thing where we talk about one thing that's kind of rocking our world right now. Andy, what's your one thing?
So there was a blizzard, and I live a little bit west of Denver, and I needed to get out and go to the store today, and I thought it would be fine. Our street never gets plowed, but the main streets were fine. And so I got in my car and treated it like I used to treat my Subaru, but I don't have a Subaru anymore.
Ooh.
I have a Honda. And I got stuck.
For those of us who are not car people, what does that mean?
A Subaru could have made it where a Honda got stuck.
Subaru's a 4-wheel drive, so it would have just rolled right over.
Pretty much
Yeah.
every Subaru that rolls off the assembly line is 4-wheel drive.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So this is a little Honda Insight, and it's adorable and I love it, and gets great grass mileage. It's a
cute.
It's a wonderful little car.
partially electric. I'm blanking on the name.
Oh, okay.
Hybrid.
Hybrid. Thank you. Oh my gosh, I can't believe.
Nice.
So, and so Senda came out and was helping me and got kitty litter, and it made me kitty litter to help with if you've never gotten stuck,
Yeah.
you use kitty litter to gain traction. And, I was really overwhelmed and stressed out, and I really
you got to do the
appreciate her.
rock.
She is
Yeah.
she taught me the rock. So that's the
Yes.
thing. Like the one thing is about what's rocking your world. Like I learned the rock today. And
Yeah.
Sunday had to count me in. She was like, all right, 1, 2, 3, go, 2, 3, off, 2, 3. And we finally got myself back into the parking spot, and I gave up. But I just wanted to send a shout out to Senda. You are the best roommate ever.
Yay.
And I really appreciate you. And then Senda took her car and went to the store instead of me.
Being a citizen of Buffalo and having at least more than once gotten stuck in my own driveway.
Oh yeah.
I totally get that. And yes, the rock is that technique is a thing that you eventually learned here in Buffalo, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I don't need it that much in Colorado because the snow usually melts by 10 a.m. the next day. But this was a snowstorm of decent length. I feel like we got like 2 feet, and then it's snowing now even more. So, and because nobody plows the road, there was just big hunks of like snow ice that, nobody could get over. So yeah, I got caught
big
the
chunks of
rock.
snow up in
Yeah, that's actually the other thing we take for granted around here is that, one, we're completely flat, but two, we actually have excellent snow removal. Like, snow doesn't really persist, like, unless it has to get, like, multiple feet before it stays.
Yeah.
Like, anything from 2 feet or under, like, at least by lunchtime, your street will be clear.
Yeah.
So Senda is telling me 27 inches. We got 27 inches.
There you go.
Impressive.
Yeah, we've seen deep snow. Even a couple of years ago when we had the November storm when we got 6 feet of snow.
Yeah.
By that afternoon, I was out on the road driving to pick people up, and then we came back and had a cookout because they cleared enough the roads around us to do that.
Yeah.
Now that's where I live. South of us, it was a little different, but
South of you, they showed up with the National Guard front loaders and dump trucks to carry that away.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't accumulate more than a foot or two an hour, we can keep up with it.
Yeah.
So
Yes, we do not have that infrastructure.
No. That's
okay.
again, that's why Buffalonians get blasé about this thing, but we also have a lot of supports in place that allow us to be kind of blasé about it.
Yeah.
Okay, gonna snap us back into the
Yep,
one.
Yes.
snap us back. We are 4 people, so we do have to actually have a slightly faster
Get it?
pace.
Snow drift.
Yes, we've been
turn into it, Bob. Turn into it.
I need a rim shot
Steer
on
into
my soundboard here. All right, who's next? Oh, me. I'm next. Look at that. Cracking the whip here. I'm the Taskmaster. You probably can't really tell. The audio only people definitely can't tell, but new glasses. Who dis? I got
They're
these
nice.
glasses like almost 2 weeks ago. I had them delivered to me, and then when they came, they were kind of like not really ready to go on my face. They needed several adjustments And then my roommate got the COVID, and we went into quarantine, so I couldn't go out and get them adjusted. So I've been wearing the old ones, and finally ran out today, now that quarantine is over, and got them adjusted, and I'm wearing them, and I'm going through that adjustment phase where everything's a little off.
Yeah,
Yes.
everything's like
Still see
super
better.
crisp.
So hey, I can see. Woo, yay. That's me. And now we're going to move on to Jerry, and I'm going to gush with Jerry.
This weekend, Chris decided to rope Bob and I into trying Valheim with him, which is basically Viking Minecraft. And we're having an absolute blast. It is super cooperative if you want to play it that way. You can hit a button so you can't hit each other, so we can like shoot arrows around and not worry about plugging somebody in the head.
Yeah, you can literally click on something to turn PvP on and off in the same day.
Yeah, and it comes triggered no PvP as opposed to the opposite.
Yeah.
So, but it's a lot of fun. You build things, you gather resources, you hunt animals and kill them for their food and for their meat and for their skin, and then use that to make stuff. And and then you encounter something that you're like, hey, we're doing really well. You turn the corner, and there's a troll that just kills everybody with one swing. And that's part of the fun of it, is you learn a lot to run away from things.
Yeah.
A lot. Or lure into stuff. And the more people you have, the more fun it is, because you can build things faster. For example, you have to keep moving around and building more bases, because you'll move someplace else. You can build someplace to stay out of the at night. So a lot of times, like Bob and Chris will be building this elaborate structure, and I'm out running around getting resources, because that's my thing. It's just a lot of fun. It's exploration, and it's beautiful. You sit on top of the hill at night and you count the stars. It's just kind of neat. So it's a lot of fun.
The graphics on it are really nice. For people who play console games and PC games, like I'm super behind the times. Like, this is the kind of graphics that I'm not used to because I've been playing Minecraft. Okay. So these are like super nice graphics compared to where I've been for the last 5 years and even longer, because I just don't play video games. The last real video game that I played was Unreal Tournament. So that's where we are there. And it was surprising to me how well it scratched that itch like Minecraft does. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, oh man, this is a lot of fun. So yay.
That's cool.
So that's Valheim and Jerry. Phil.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to gush about iHunt. We played iHunt on Sunday.
Gush.
And finished out our pilot episode, taking down the Jersey werewolf. It was quite good. I had a lot of fun. Running it. Tony, once again, stepped up with a curveball that it was enough of a curve. I had to stop the game real quick, make sure we were all on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little worried,
which was
for
fine.
Half a minute.
Yeah, Tony's character wanted to talk the werewolf out of doing what it was doing, and I'm like, yeah, the tagline for this game, as a reminder, is, killing monsters in the gig economy. So we're not going to be talking the werewolf out of it, but he decided that his character was going to. And the good part about the pilot is that you actually don't engage any of the rules. You just talk about what happens. So he got bit. And then Bob had to kill the werewolf. Actually, Bob and Tony killed the werewolf.
Yeah.
And then Tony wound up being fine because the werewolf was too new to be able to infect and create another werewolf. Which led to our finale when we discovered the werewolf was part of a CrossFit gym.
No, you said you mispronounced cult. A CrossFit cult.
Correct.
Jersey.
Yes.
CrossFit cult.
Yes. Jersey CrossFit cult, led by a female werewolf who was the head werewolf, and there was a confrontation where they confronted her in the gym and had a big fight using all the CrossFit equipment.
We use those big ropes that you.
Yes.
The tire that you flip.
The tire right through like a tire at her.
I parkoured through the hole in the tire. It was great.
Yeah. So I also got my physical book. Which is glorious. Like, I love it. It is enormous for a Fate book. It is the biggest Fate book I've ever seen since, what's that one? The space one.
Oh my gosh.
Starjammer or whatever, like
No,
that.
no,
like
no.
it's bigger. It
Begins with an
seems
M.
bigger than that one. It's a beast. It's an 8.5 by 11. It is 384 pages, but it is gorgeous. The layout's gorgeous. It's full color. I love everything about this game. I didn't realize how much I was going to enjoy this game until I started reading it and got into it. Mindjammer. Thank you, Jared. Mindjammer, not Starjammer. I'm hooked, man. Like, I think iHunt's good. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with iHunt. I think it's, I think it falls in the Venn diagram of our group. It falls right into that space where, it's a little bit of real life and not, and it like every game that we've played where we have that just hits right with that particular group. So I'm excited. And I like Bob's character concept has actually come out perfect for the game. You just didn't realize you were going to be like the experienced hunter.
Yeah. Surprise.
Yeah. So anyway, iHunt, fantastic.
Yeah. Good time.
Cool. All right, moving us along to announcements. I'll keep this short. Voyager Watch Party is entering week 2 tonight for the live folks. Listen, it is early enough to get in on this. If you are Voyager curious, or maybe you love Voyager and you want to come back to it, jump in now. Like it's way early enough to jump in. There are a couple more jump-in points, but if you wanted to get in at the ground floor, like now would be a perfect time to get in. We're still in season 1. Season 1's a short season, so we're actually only going to be in season 1 till the end of this week.
Yeah, that's right. I had forgotten it was only 15 episodes long.
Only a 15 episode first season.
Also, there's a journaling game.
Yes.
If you want to be extra nerdy.
The journaling game is brilliant, by the way.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yes,
yeah,
Jared, well played.
Yeah, you journal as a lower deck ensign or enlisted on board Voyager. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be some times, I think there was one last week in the last episode we had in the list, and there'll be some future ones where that journaling will be a lot of like even extra fun based on the episodes.
Yep.
So anyway, Voyager, time to get in is now. We're definitely doing that. I'm going to do one more before I kick it to Jerry. A reminder, we are not streaming next week. Cool. March 23rd, we are not streaming, which means that there will be no podcast the following Monday on March 29th. We are taking a week off. I am getting my COVID vaccine number 2.
Right.
On Monday, the 22nd. So it is a crapshoot whether or not I will be fine on the 28th. I could be super sleepy. I could be totally fine. I could be like splitting headache.
23rd?
I'm sorry, 23rd.
30th.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. 23rd for the live show.
23rd's the Tuesday.
For the podcast.
Right.
23rd's Tuesday. 29th is the...
No. 29th plus 7 is
Monday.
30, Phil. Mathing is hard.
I got this, man. Project manager.
I'm literally staring at a calendar. That's the only reason why I know.
I have to stare at a calendar all day for work purposes, right? So, so the 23rd, we record live. It would drop on the 29th. None of those 30th. Are happening. We'll be back on the 30th. What?
It drops a week
Do you know
later.
when your own episodes drop?
No, I don't know when our episodes drop. Do they not drop on Mondays?
No.
No, they drop on Tuesdays. Pandas
Whatever.
drops on Mondays.
All right, fine.
That's
then
why
yes,
I keep
the
telling
30th.
you it's the 30th.
Yeah, you got to tell me that the
Get
show
your podcasts
drops.
in order.
I thought you were trying to tell me it was Monday. I'm like, Monday's the 29th.
No.
All right, whatever. The show, so there were not going to be
there's a show, and we won't have one that time.
There'll be a show later. After
eventually, we'll get to it.
Probably, I'll come back.
We'll bring.
I'm not making any promises after this week.
We'll drag you in, kicking and screaming. Don't worry about it. All right, what else we got?
All right.
Okay, Jerry, give us the last one before we head into the workshop.
Pandora: Total Destruction by Todd Crapper is now live on Kickstarter. This is a game where you play as supers with massively destructive powers, trying to save the world from aliens. I'm actually playing in an online version of it with Todd right now, and it's a lot of fun. Basically, you are playing. Basically, it's a world where superheroes exist, but the most destructive / most powerful of them end up getting kind of shunted away and for their own good. And I'm talking powers like your powers. It's an interesting game because when you make a dice roll, it's got a success with complications thing. You generally either fail, succeed with complications, succeed, or most likely you succeed really well and also have massive complications. Like, hey, I blasted the alien ship out of the sky, and I also managed to bring down 3 buildings full of people at the same time. So it's a game with you've got to be very careful. Like, my power is I can pull metal from anything, but I'm not don't have a lot of control of it. So I might like fight a bad guy and need metal and suddenly pull all the I-beams out of a building, kind of thing. Another person can turn off the charge on all the electrons in an area, which causes all sorts of bad things to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of fun. You're super, super powerful, but also have to be very careful because there's lots of consequences. So it's a fun game. And that is now live on Kickstarter. The link is in the show notes.
Yep.
But just go to Kickstarter and type in Pandora or Pandora Troll Destruction. You'll find it easily.
Yay.
So, all right.
Alrighty.
That brings us to the feature segment.
Ooh, it's time.
Good yourself, Vecchione.
Take a sip.
Workshop! We're talking more about IPs, but this time in the Roundtable, sharing our ideas for 6 whole questions all about playing in IPs here in the workshop.
Don't suck.
Don't suck.
Suck.
Now we take a sip.
Please have no
That's why
suckage.
Jerry opens the segment.
So, this week, we're going to return to our topic of GMing and playing in established intellectual properties, or IPs. Last week, we did a deep dive into some of the issues playing in established IPs, and provided a few tips on how to negotiate as a group to get the most out of playing these worlds. But tonight, we're going to expand on this by doing a roundtable with our guest, who's a professional podcaster on a Star Wars actual play podcast, Andy Fox.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, that is you.
Okay, so previously
They called me a professional.
previously on Misdirected Mark. As a bit of a summary, here's what we talked about in depth last week. If you didn't listen to the episode, shame on you. Go back and listen to it, and then go listen to this one. Really quick, an established IP is an intellectual property that's widely known, like Star Trek, the MCU, or any other Disney product like Star Wars, for instance. It's a world that is paired up with a set of rules to make an RPG, right? These are, in the case of what we're talking about here, we're talking about IPs that were not first games, right? There's a whole other topic lurking in our future about IPs that are games, but we didn't talk about that last week.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, you pair them up, rule set, established IP, make a game out of it. We often find these worlds engaging because they're a form of fantasy fulfillment, right? They give us a chance to play inside some of our favorite media.
The main challenges we have, once again, we're going to go over these again, is number 1, determining what is canon. What parts of the world we consider as fixed, and what parts are going to be mutable. The second is, how much adherence are we going to have to canon? Are we allowed to change any of the details of what's going on? Can things happen and move things on? Third is going to be continuity to events, which is making our adventures stay in line with canon, or are we going to be completely out of continuity entirely? And lastly, what's going to happen with the main characters that already exist in the IP? Determine what the role the main characters of the IP are going to have or not have in the game itself.
Mm-hmm. Then to wrap that up, we gave a number of different ways that you could deal with those issues or not deal with them, as the case may be, with different models of how to play in an IP. So they were things like play before all the things happen, play after all the things happen, play far away from the canon events, play in the background of the main events and characters, become the main characters, play the actual characters, alternate universes, and new timelines.
Mm-hmm.
Fine summary. And with that summary complete, we're going to get started with the following question.
All right. Our first question is, what is your experience playing and running in established IPs, and what is your favorite IP that you have either run or played? Go ahead, Andy.
Well, I love a good original world, and I like to brag that I've been working on my D&D world for over 10 years. So I was a little bit hesitant to play in established IPs, but I did a couple of episodes as a guest on Redemption and realized it was super fun. And so I love playing in the Star Wars setting. And we'll talk about later, we brush up against some of the canon characters. We work with the extended universe. And it's really cool to be able to draw on things that everybody knows about, or most people know about. I was worried I wouldn't know enough, which is why my first character had amnesia, actually, so that if I didn't know something, I could cover it up. But more recently, I've actually been playing Star Trek Adventures. We had our first holodeck episode last night, and it was absolutely amazing. Yeah. And it's sometimes hard to play in Star Trek because sometimes there's really scientific things that I don't understand, and I'm supposed to be the science officer. But, we just blame it on the Techions and keep going.
That's the way you do it.
Techions are the port nacelle.
Starboard power couple.
Yeah. Always. All right. Growing up in RPG land, I have played a ton of intellectual properties. Marvel superheroes, Robotech, TMNT, DC Heroes, Star Trek, Star Wars, Ironwood, the role-playing game, Firefly, Middle-earth, Doctor Who, even Humanics and GURPS. And I find them, I'll jump into any of them because I don't mind playing around with them. It's always fun to kind of run around in your favorite game world and kind of see what's going on and do the things you saw people do. But I think as a GM, I've had the most fun running Star Wars. I've run it in each one in Saga system, which was okay. I've run it using Savage Worlds, and I do a little one-shot that we've done as kind of a spin-off. And then I've also been running it with the new Genesis system, which I really enjoy a lot. And all three of them have just been a lot of fun. Star Wars has a lot of opening because there's so much of it that is unexplored that you can take the little bits and pieces you do know, and as long as you don't put yourself right where the main action is going on, you can have all sorts of stuff going on. And what's nice is that some of the new canon opens things up. You need a new Sith bad guy? Well, the Inquisitors are running around. There are huts everywhere. There are lots of assorted crime elements. It's a good thing to work with. So I've just been having a good time with it. And I'm looking forward to trying some new things. After watching all this Star Trek, playing a new Star Trek is interesting because I understand a lot more of the tropes now. And we're less likely to be running around being trigger happy on everything, which is important. All right. Bob?
Yeah, so originally when I was filling the answer to this question out, I was like, I have never run a game in an established IP, and I just had a light bulb moment. I'm like, I bloody well did. I ran a game of D20 Modern / D20 Future set in the universe of the animated film Titan AE.
Oh, I love that movie.
I love that movie too. And it was a terrible fucking campaign that didn't last very long. Because I was telling a story and I wasn't letting the characters have any input.
It wasn't a terrible
It
game.
was terrible. Come on.
Go write a novel, Bob.
But the important thing is I did run one. So there you go. I've played in a couple of versions of different Marvel superhero games, but they weren't actually set in any of the IPs. They were just playing characters, like usually made up characters, and we never really referenced any of like the Marvel stuff, like the Avengers or anything like that. So I don't know. Those really don't count to me. I've played a couple of different kinds of Trek. And I've played in Serenity. The Trek games really to me are the ones that I find to be my favorite, because Star Trek just has so much gaming potential for like whatever you want. Humor, science, mystery, drama, horror, whatever you want. You get it all in Trek.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, I dig that. What about you, Phil?
Yeah, thanks to Jerry doing his list, I actually realized I have a whole bunch more on my list that I didn't even mention.
I know, I was thinking about that too.
I also played a lot of Marvel. I ran Robotech for a while. I ran a shit ton of TMNT as a high schooler. DC Heroes, which was actually my favorite superhero set of mechanics for a long time, even though I am less of a fan of the IP. I actually learned a whole bunch of DC heroes because for a summer or two, I played a whole bunch of DC heroes and then like read a bunch of comic books, to kind of get versed up on who they were. I played a bunch of Star Trek. I've played Lug Trek. I don't think we ever played Decipher. I have Decipher Trek, but we primarily played Lug Trek. I've played Star Wars. I think I didn't play I've played the Genesis one once. Yes, in the time where Senda almost killed us all by putting her finger in her mouth so she could do an accent.
With shared dice at the table.
With shared dice at the table.
It's a trap.
At a convention.
At Gen Con, no less. But I've also played the D6 version. I've played the D20 version, all those. And I played in the same Serenity game that Bob played in. In fact, we were crewmates in that Serenity campaign.
Yep.
In terms of games that I've really liked running, I have not had a chance to run Star Trek, but I know I'm going to love that. But the one that I did actually have a lot of fun running when I was a teenager was I really enjoyed running TMNT. And I don't think I necessarily ran Palladium correctly, but I ran TMNT correctly.
Correct.
It was a wickedly fun game, although I had a lot of problems with campaign pacing. So I ran in the course of a couple of years, I ran 5 campaigns of it because I kept burning story arcs and starting over. It was it was a really it wasn't good in that respect. But yeah, I loved TMNT. No, I agree, Jared. I don't know if you can actually play Palladium correctly. I certainly didn't. But whichever way we adapted ourselves to playing it when I was in high school, I actually liked that version of the game quite a bit. So yeah, anyway, that's my background on it. So, and I also really enjoyed that Serenity game. And I'm pretty sure it was Serenity, not Firefly.
No, it was Serenity.
The Cortex one.
Yep, it was Serenity. Okay. And I enjoyed it too until it devolved.
Yeah.
You know why it devolved? For the same reason that we've been talking about, is that somebody went off canon.
Yep.
Oh.
And the rest of us were not comfortable going off canon.
Yep.
And it created a big player rift, because suddenly the game did not feel very Serenity.
Yep.
And that's the thing about playing in IPs is that moment. And maybe if we have time, we'll get to it in a story or we'll talk about it in the after show. But it is a hallmark moment of how most of the table is perceiving the game and how one player's perception of how the IP should go or not understanding the IP can just derail everything.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
All right, save that because I know we're on a time schedule.
Right. Yep. But I do want to point out that we all seem to have forgotten Dresden Files.
Yes.
We've all played it and we all forgot to mention it.
I
haven't played.
Oh, you haven't?
You have,
Yeah.
Phil.
Yeah.
I ran a short-lived Dresden Files game.
You did. I didn't understand a thing about that.
When was that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Phil had no idea what it was, but it was
before Fate.
Yeah.
It was we played it in a D20 modern.
True 20.
Yeah.
What's that?
True 20.
Oh, True 20. True 20. That's right. We played we made our own True 20 version of it.
I thought I was being super clever too. The name of the campaign was Buffalo Soldiers. It was great. Anywho.
And Mo reminded me that a whole bunch of things like all the anime stuff that came out, like Bubblegum Crisis for Mechon and Votoms. And then when you had Tritac, we've played Sailor Moon, we played Demon City Shinjuku and Dominion Tank Police. And
I didn't play any of those.
What's fun is they're all the same systems, so technically you can run Sailor Moon and Dominion Tank Police at the same time.
I'm actually a lot like Andy. Given a preference, I actually will just run my own shit.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, I was actually thinking about this recently because I ran up into a problem in a D&D 5e game where I was like, hey, we're in Forgotten Realms or whatever it is. And I was like, hey, I really want to play as a paladin of Sehanine because she's the goddess of fall and lovers and tricksters. And I think it's really funny to be a paladin of a trickster goddess. And someone got all up in my grill and was like, haven't you read? Sehanine doesn't actually exist. She's just a part of Selune. And I was like, well, I think our GM can make a decision on this. And then the GM was silent on it. So I just kept going with Sahani.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things, like even in non-established intellectual properties, there's still like an established or expected canon.
You know what? I think that brings me to a question I was going to bring up later because you brought it up, and I want to discuss it now. What do we do when you have like 6 people know the system, and like, you know, hey, we're going to play in Final Fantasy. I know nothing about Final Fantasy.
Which one?
Friends. Yeah, exactly. But but even things like that, like you don't know the canon. What are some suggestions on how to let a player play? Like your character had amnesia, which was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
But what are some other ideas on what to do when you've got the player who doesn't have the time to read 47 novels and get verses and everything, which you want to bring them up to snuff? How do you do something with that so that they don't end up breaking the genre?
So save it for the break.
Yep.
Okay.
Let's trap that into a question for the break.
Yep.
And why don't Jerry, why don't you give us our next question?
All right. So overall, what draws you into GMing or playing established IPs when you do, Bob?
Yeah, it's for me that's super ephemeral. Like a lot of different things can draw me to playing a particular game. So it depends on what the IP is, what system, you know, like there's a lot of different ways I can go. It's a not a super great answer, but that's my answer.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just jump right on over to Phil.
Yeah, for me, GMing established IPs, like I want to GM established IPs because I, you know, deep down inside want to write for those IPs.
Yeah.
Right. That's how I get to live out the fantasy is I like get to create a story, inside my favorite IP. Like I get to create a Star Trek episode. And to me, that's like the coolest thing because I love those IPs and I, you know, don't want them to end. So, you know, by being able to play in those universes, I can keep them going and extend them. And then for playing, I mostly just like, I'm attracted to playing IPs that I think, look like they would be fun. Right. Like I look at it and I'm like, that would be cool to be a character in that world. Cool. I want to play in that world. Like when it comes to playing, it is a very low bar for me. It just has to be something where I'd be like, oh yeah, I want to be that kind of person. How about you, Jer?
I like the idea. I like to share group ideas of what's going on and a chance to create adventures in a creative world we love. I don't necessarily need to play the main characters. Or even encounter them. I just like to play, like, I want to play in the Star Wars universe. I want to be a Starship crew member in Star Trek. I want to, adventure in ancient Hyperborea. It's basically ultimate fan fiction. And I might be the outlaw here. I have no trouble with somebody who takes a loved IP and messes with it. You know, you want to kill off all the main characters and have us take over, go for it. You want to do a flip and turn out that, you know, Luke goes dark by the end of episode 2 and joins the dark side. I'll play along with that 100%. So I don't mind that kind of thing, a chance to explore alternate timelines and things like that as well. So that's what I can do. But as far as GMing, I want to GM something so the other players can get a chance to kind of live out their own little fantasies in the world. And we'll get on to the next thing. So, Andy?
Well, I think in some ways it's easier to be creative when you have a foundation already laid.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the reasons maybe we play RPGs instead of doing anything else. We need some structure, whether or not it's a box or not, you know, being able to think in or out of the box is a lot easier if you know what the box is. So exactly. I love also seeing original characters interact with the canon characters, and sometimes things bleed over. Like, I don't know why I'm embarrassed about this. I'm not embarrassed about anything else like this, but I am super embarrassed that I have a major crush on young Obi-Wan. Like me, Andy. And of course,
like Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan from the prequels? Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
It was like one of my first celebrity crushes, and it's still like, I'm not going to be able to watch the Obi-Wan show. I'm just not going to be able to do it.
Oh, I mean, it's fair. I mean, it's fair. He looks after episode 1, like in episode 2 when he's got the beard. Oh
Yes.
yeah, no, he's
He's a dapper young fella.
Yeah. And so, of course, when he was, Chris, our GM, brought him in, and there was a lot of time spent teasing me, and there was definitely some emotional bleed into my character, and some of that was cut out. Most of it, I think, was actually cut out, but that was both fun and just so embarrassing.
Hello there.
Don't. I turn red, and I just can't do it.
Anakin, Count Dooku is trying to concentrate.
Yeah. We met Anakin Skywalker briefly. He was super melodramatic and is just every time she can, when Jedis are brought up, she's like, Jedis are so melodramatic. Like that Skywalker guy who just threw off his cloak. You remember that? I just love calling back to that because it's a shared experience, not only to the actual canon, but to the podcast canon.
Yeah.
Ever since the prequels, I always take my hood of my hoodie off with both hands.
Mm-hmm.
I always feel like
dramatic
like the
reveal.
Jedi thing, like just taking the hood off, both hands, looking around.
That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely,
it's a requirement.
That's great.
And you have to throw your robes on the ground and make the Jedi laundry service really upset with you, because every fight you have to start by throwing your cloak on the ground.
He wasn't even fighting at the time. He was just being melodramatic.
Uh-huh.
Oh, man. All right, so question number 3. Of the challenges to established IPs that were discussed previously, which one is the most important to you as a GM or player?
Right. So for me, I think I hinted at this before, adherence to canon is my biggest pet peeve. So I'm the opposite of Jerry, where Jerry's like, you can do whatever you want to the IP. I am like, nope. If I'm playing the IP, I'm playing the IP. There are some fringe cases where the IP is so broad, like Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get too bent about that in Marvel, because it's like, man, you can't even keep that. Like, you can't even keep that canon straight. But things like Serenity, Star Trek, things like that, adherence to canon is the one where I'm like a no. Like, I don't want any messing with it. And then the quick second to that is continuity. I'm a little more flexible on continuity, but canon, man, I cannot. I just can't.
Hey, we ran into this
it is my
dude named
biggest hang up.
We ganked him and took this fancy ring.
Yeah. Nope.
I've
not
that.
having it.
Now, to be fair, that was the fault of the GM for putting Frodo in our way and making him as annoying as possible. And playing with a bunch of players who had never read Lord of the Rings, the movies were still 20 years out. So, yeah. So
now if you tell me, right, if you tell me up front that, we're going to stray from canon, and I like the premise of it, you can totally do this to me in Marvel, right? Yeah, so if you tell me, Jerry, what's that really cool Savage World superhero setting with the villains? The villains are the only ones who survive.
Oh, Necessary Evil.
Yes.
If somebody was really cool, but yeah.
No. But my point is, if somebody was like, look, I want to play Necessary Evil, but with Marvel bad guys in a universe where all the Marvel heroes are killed and only the bad guys are left.
Yeah.
I would be like, I can do this. Not only can I do it, I would welcome it. I would absolutely play that game.
Yeah.
But if you're like, hey, we're going to play Star Trek, except that there's no Vulcans in the Federation, and I'm like, fuck off, get out. I'm just like,
they were one of the 4 established planets.
Rending my garments in anger. No, I can't do it. So for me, it's adherence to canon.
Yeah.
How about you, Andy? What's the challenge? Which one of those things is a big hang up for you?
I worry about keeping a sense of surprise and being able to tell a good story with what you're doing, and not have it sort of fall to the side of this other story, the bigger story. Unless, of course, you're on board with the concept of you're going to kill Frodo and carry the ring yourself. Although I'm not going to lie, I don't know if I would play in that game, because I think Senda would yell at me. She's a lot more dedicated to Lord of the Rings than I am.
Boy,
so, sometimes it's expected that you know a lot, and you just have to roll with the punches.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Phil is very, very interested in keeping the canon of Star Trek and making us watch all the Star Trek so we can play Star Trek. And actually I have a Star Trek story. We were so we play we're a ship that has a home on a starbase, but we still do adventures, so that's really fun. And we were out to help this other planet, not a part of the Federation, test this big old weapon that turned out to have a micro singularity in it. Which I was like, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Turns out that means that there's like a mini black hole in it.
Yeah.
That they can like trigger a mini black hole, which is bad, right? Like tear a hole in space in the subspace. And one of the players, Quincy, goes, "That's against the Kittimer Accords. We can't have anything to do with that." And we looked it up, and sure enough, it's against the Kittimer Accords, which, if you're a Star Trek person, you know is like a big important treaty. And so then our GM had to figure out what to do with that, because we then called our admiral and went, "Hey, we didn't know that it was this kind of weapon. What do we do?"
Surprise.
Yeah, I mean, and the good part is, right, like we know that from time to time the Federation doesn't always adhere to all of those things. There have been secret projects and things like that.
Yeah, but we'd already gotten super in trouble for like going into Romulan space without permission and that kind of stuff. So.
Wandering around with a quantum singularity on there. That's
Well, it never. We obeyed the letter, but not the spirit. Like it never came onto our ship. Once we got the briefing and was like, "Oh crap, it's a micro singularity, Admiral. What do we do?" The Admiral was like, "You can monitor the test, but you can't be a part of it." And then Klingons showed up to steal it, which they fired on us, which was also against the Kittimer Accords, which was fun. So.
Nice.
Oh, man.
I won't go into it because I could go on and on until he said. But anyway, so that's if I was a GM, I would have been kind of at a loss to figure out how to continue. Luckily, we had a GM who was, better than I was. So
Cool.
Okay.
What about you?
all right, Jerry.
For me, first thing is that no matter what we do, go back to those original discussions and make sure that whatever we create is going to go along with what all the players envision is their version of the world. If we're not going to mess with canon, we don't. While it was interesting to do some of those things back when I was a kid, where all of a sudden, hey, we've got Frodo's ring, or wow, everybody in Robotech is dead, now we're the heroes. Those were all odd dice rolls. And the one Star Wars one, where all the main characters got killed and we took over, that was sprung on us kind of out of the blue. I would never do that today. I would expect our GM shouldn't play that way either. If you're going to have something where the players take over for the main characters in Star Wars, you got to start off from the beginning and say, okay, at some point in this adventure, Luke, Obi-Wan, Han, and Chewie get wiped out, and you're going to have to take over from there. That's important to talk about because canon's important, and you don't want to mess with what is somebody's precious thing. Not what I understand. Senda wouldn't play Lord of the Rings. I completely understand why, because it's precious to her. But if you're going to do something with something that somebody is interested in, if they like Firefly, that I don't get as passionate about a lot of properties that some people do. So I always want to talk to you. Okay, what are the things you don't ever want to see? What are the things you don't want to work with? What don't you like? And what aren't we going to, under no circumstances, change? And also, what are the things that you're sick of in this genre? If I'm playing Doctor Who, I never want to see Weeping Angel again. That's just me. Give me all the Daleks you want, but I don't want to see Weeping Angel, because that would make it no fun for me. That's okay, but we talk about that up front. But we're not going to say they never existed, and we're not going to mess with somebody else's idea of what is Doctor Who. And that's, I think, really important, no matter what you're doing. Other than that, I'll play in stuff. I'll play in any genre. I'll even try to run something. And I've played in games like the Dresden Files. I've read 2 books. But the rest of the players are doing a good job of keeping me up to date with what's going on. And when I make a odd comment that doesn't seem to fit in place, they let me know that that's not going to work. Or when you say outsiders, that's a totally different kind of thing than what you think you're talking about. Okay, great. I need to know that. And that's okay. But like I said, other than that, for me, it's important to just make sure that everybody is on the same page with what they want out of this game. What are they here to play for? So, Bob?
Yeah, so for me, I would generally not want to run into the main characters. Unless there's like a cameo here and there. I prefer that we do our own thing outside of what they're doing. Let them do their thing. Their plot's going on over here. Our plot's different. It's going on over here. Like I said, cameo, like in passing, you run into Lando, you have to swing into Bespin real quick and grab something. Oh, look, there's Lando. Okay, bye. And we're gone, But yeah, otherwise, I would rather not. Like, I don't want to be rubbing elbows with Han and Chewie the whole friggin' campaign. Like, no, let them do their thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally respect that. What you call it? That bugs me too.
Somebody once told me that if you're going to have characters from IP show up in a game, the best thing to do is have the players rescue, save, or do something that the main characters can't do. Never have them show up and outshine the players. Have them be there and okay, hey, we fixed Luke's starfighter while he was down or something, so that the players come out of it still feeling like they did the big thing, and the major characters are just more background.
Yeah,
because they're not the most important characters in that story.
Yeah.
I think that makes perfect sense.
I got a great idea for a Star Wars campaign. All right, here's what we're going to do. This is going to take place before the second Death Star gets blown up. It's going to be an espionage game, and you're all playing Bothans.
I think we know how this campaign ends, right?
Yeah.
We're playing Rogue 2.
Yeah. Oh. All right, well, that's it for me.
Yeah. So with that, we're going to take a break. We're going to check in with the chat room. We're going to answer Jerry's question. Mm-hmm. But first, Bob's going to tell us about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network.
Yeah, so we got this little ditty thing that we do called the Gnome Cast. And a bunch of gnomes from Gnome Stew get together and talk about gaming topics and themselves and stuff, and they try to entertain you, the listeners, so that they can avoid being thrown into the stew pot, because that's bad. You don't want to get cooked. It's fun. It's entertaining. I was on it once. Once. I like to linger in the background. I'm a lurker.
I've been in the same building as when they've been recording.
There you go. So yeah, Gnomecast, check it out. All right, so we're going to talk about Jerry's question.
Yeah, we'll talk about Jerry's question, then we'll see if the chat room has any questions. I've been watching them; they've been very chatty, talking about IPs.
Yes,
but,
right.
I know I haven't seen anybody actually fire a question at us yet. So Jerry's question, I think, was, how do you take somebody who doesn't really know the IP and get them into a game about an IP? So the answer is not make them watch 3 complete series of Star Trek before you let them play a Star Trek game. That's not a recommended course of action. It's been fun, but it might be overkill. Yeah. So what are some of the ways? I know, Jerry, I think your character background is one of the ways for your Dresden game. Your character background is one of the ways you deal with it. So, tell us about your character. Tell us about your character.
Yeah. Well, my character?
Yeah.
He's a college professor. He's a fair to middling sorcerer, and he has taken to teaching the younger students at the college who are trying to form a coven. So I'm in charge of this coven of aspiring witches and sorcerers. And I'm not I'm not one of the main, what do they call them? The White Council, the White Wizards?
Yeah, you're not a member of the council.
Yeah.
That's it right there. That's the part I wanted to get to, which is the way, so the first way is the outsider.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know this IP. I'm the outsider. No, I know.
You're the elf who's been locked away in an ivory tower studying ancient texts for 200 years.
Right. I'm not on the council, so I'm not expected to know these things.
Yeah.
I'm the superhero, but I was a superhero, but I'm from Chicago, not, Manhattan. So I don't know all these guys.
Yeah.
We actually did something like that in one of the Forgotten Realms adventures that I played in for the Adventures League. Was my character just showed up? I fell through a portal from Greyhawk or Mistar or one of those.
Sure.
And I was running away from somebody and jumped through a portal, and here I am, and I know nothing about where I am. I don't know anybody. I don't know anything. I know what monsters are, but I don't know who's there. Which works.
Yeah, another one is that you are the inexperienced
Yes.
character, so you join. You are the Harry Kim,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
You
Yes.
just literally said goodbye to your mom and
Mhm.
boarded the ship when the campaign starts. So
See,
you're not.
I think of that as the Ash Ketchum character, not
Yeah.
the Harry.
Yeah, you're not
Okay,
expected
that
to
also
really know
works.
anything.
Yeah.
No.
Another thing you can do is everybody's favorite thing, the tropes. All
Yep.
right? You figure out what the main tropes are for the IP, and you're like, look, this is how this works, all right?
Yep.
And you lay out the tropes for the person, and if we lean into these things, you're probably going to be fine.
The first time I ran Amber Diceless, which was before the summer, it was a summer before Bob, summer or two
Yeah.
before I met Bob, I had not even read the books. The rule book has 2-page summaries of all the novels.
Mm-hmm.
I read
that's
that
great.
and we started playing. And then as we were playing the game, we all went out and bought the novels and started reading them. So we kind of wound up refining the characters a little as we went through play, but we relied heavily on those summaries.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that look, if you're not a Dresden guy and you don't plan on reading all of the Dresden books, those plots are all in Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Go sit and just
Mm-hmm.
go read the plots to all the books, and read. I guarantee you, there's a wiki site.
I'll guarantee
the-
that too.
What's that?
I guarantee. I am slowly reading the book, so I'm not. But that is a good idea.
Yeah.
Or
Well, if you don't want to ruin,
Yeah.
if you're actually planning on reading them, you should read
Yeah.
them. But if you're I just want to play this, I don't think I'm actually going to go read all the books. Then just go read all the summaries and go hit up the Dresden wiki.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, somebody made a
Yeah.
full
there-
Dresden wiki where you can be like, what's a white council? What's a white court vampire versus a red court vampire? Guarantee you can just look those up really quick.
Oh, I know this. Red court sucks blood, white court sucks emotions.
Yes, I think that's right. isn't it?
Essentially.
I've read one. And I
Bob's-
played in one adventure of a Dresden
Bob's
campaign.
Yeah.
Bob's our Dresden expert.
And to kind of lean into Vampire 54's question, you kind of answered part of that, which is, what's the best way to GM to run an IP you're not familiar with? One is
Don't do it.
run out and grab the Wikipedia. And number two, lean on your players.
Oh yeah.
If you've got a bunch of players who are more knowledgeable in something, don't be afraid to say to them things like, all right, you guys are in the Outer Rim, you're going to head to a planet. Hey, Bob, what's a good planet in the, Beta Quadrant or whatever? And let them kind of fill you in on it. Just going to do two things. Number one is it's going to be, it's going to give you the information you want. Number two, it's going to involve the players back in the story again.
Oh yeah,
quick.
that's great.
And then you might get multiple things kind of all tossing on together. Just take copious notes and run from there. And just make sure everybody understands that you're not as familiar with this. And if you make a mistake, you're more than happy to rewind, all of a sudden somebody takes Frodo's ring. Okay, great. You shouldn't be doing that. Okay, rewind. We find the ring, we put it back, we get them home. Whatever. Give them some other reward. But
I will say it is pretty intimidating to
Yeah.
I will say it's pretty intimidating to GM a game when the players know more about the world than you do.
Mhm.
I think it's a lot easier if you're like, hey, I know a whole bunch of Star Trek. I got this. Don't worry. I'll fill you guys in as we go, as opposed to you've only seen a couple of, episodes of Star Trek. And then I sit at the table and I'm the whole time trying to keep a poker face. That's that's not what they would do. The Klingon raises their voice and looks like they're getting really angry, or not Klingon.
Yeah, I was about to say.
The Vulcan raises their voice and looks really angry. No, they don't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to play against trope if you don't know the trope.
Yeah.
So knowing tropes would be, I think, pretty important.
Yeah.
Going to somebody who absolutely loves the system or the IP, and saying, what are the tropes? And so for, Star Trek, Phil has a list.
And I think for every IP, it's a good idea to make a list of the tropes that are there.
Yes, always.
Because I think because I'll tell you what, a DC Comics game is going to play different than a Marvel game
Oh yeah.
And a DC Universe game is going to television universe games that play a lot different than a Marvel and a cinematic universe game.
Yep.
Even though they're both superhero games. So what are those tropes that are there? And go from there. So, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other thing I would say is if you're a GM and you want to like run an IP, and you do have a player who knows more about the IP, take a crash course in it. Like if it's got movies, for instance, or it's got episodes, like have the GM or like have your friend like pick out a set like, hey, I want to run an MCU style game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time to watch the entire MCU. But I kind of want to set it in this area. Like which Marvel movies would help me get the right feel for that?
Yep.
And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, one of your friends might be like, cool, I think you need to, you know, like you should watch Avengers 1, Civil War, like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And just, you know, like, I mean, here's the thing. IPs, if you're not familiar with them, require a little work to get to know them.
Yeah.
The advantage to IPs when you play them is when we typically know them
Mm-hmm.
going into them. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't feel comfortable running a Clone Wars game until I went and binged the Clone Wars.
Right,
Yeah.
which was my problem. I'd never seen the Clone Wars, but I'm familiar with the Star Wars universe
Mm-hmm.
and its, you know, basic timeline and everything. So
Yeah,
And
and I think the
they
onus is
just filled
on.
me in.
I think it's harder when you're the GM, right? So if I'm
Yes.
a player, it's like, cool, I'm coming in. I know Star Wars. I've seen all the movies. I've seen a couple episodes of Clone Wars. And then everybody's like, cool, we'll catch you up to like where we are, what we're doing. And it's like, all right, cool. I got this. But I think it's way harder when you GM.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I was also coming in as a new player into an established game.
Yeah.
So that was also, it
Which
gave
has
me,
its own challenges.
yeah,
Yes.
it gave me an opportunity to then kind of be flexible with my role in the group.
Absolutely. All right, good question, Jer. Good question.
So
Great.
a tangential question to that from Chromatic Chameleon. I'm not a big fan of IPs because I find them too restrictive. What are some pitches you might throw at me to get me to change my mind?
So this is where I say, like, going back to that list, right? Do the ones, and like Bob, I think you said this too, do the ones where you are far away from the canon, right? So like, if we're gonna play Star Trek, like there's no end to places we could put the ship where we're not ever gonna run into the Enterprise.
It's true.
Same thing with Star Wars. We can easily hit the outer rim and stay mostly out of everybody's way. So yeah, I think what you want is for like, if you're interested, you want to adopt that model where you just kind of stay away from the main stuff going on and you're really in it because you like the general setting and the tropes that kind of are packed in with that setting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you eventually develop sort of a canon within the canon as well, because you don't know things like, we don't know how many genders Bothans have, and we don't know how Duro reproduce officially. I have answers for those things in the Redemption universe.
Mm-hmm.
There are at least 36 Bothan genders, and eggs.
And eggs.
And eggs. They are not mammals, and the females should not have boobs.
There you go.
So that's one of the other things. Like, yes, it's restrictive in that, in a sense, but it's also kind of freeing in that I don't care what Disney says about these things. Like, we have answers within our own game.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the only times it's tough is when there is an answer. But you're right. Like,
Yes.
there's so many places where there's not answers that it's totally fine to just fill them in. And like things with like Star Trek and Star Wars, like if you don't even want to touch the established species, like you just make up another one, and there's no reason why that species isn't A, part of the Federation, B, isn't the captain of a ship.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Absolutely.
just whatever, like whatever species you decide, it's like, I'm going to be this species. And as long as the GM's like, yeah, we can fit that into the rules. It's cool. We can stat it up. Like, there's no reason that doesn't fit. And it gives you some breathing room. Like, I don't have to play, a Starfleet Klingon because I don't want to have to be caught up in all the trappings of what everybody knows about Klingons.
And that right there, every single person who has sat in a writer's room for a Star Trek show and every single person who has ever written a novel for a Star Trek book has done that. Because they're like, I'm gonna create this new race that's this, whatever.
Yeah, like we want the Doctor to be like maybe polyamorous and kind of have a creepy smile. We don't really have anything thus
Oh man,
far.
Phlox's black hole sun smile wigs me out.
Yeah.
I love Phlox to no end, but
I think he's one of the best.
But that black hole
doctors.
sun smile wigs me out every time.
Creepy.
Yeah, he barely needs to sleep.
Yep.
I mean, he's amazing.
He's great.
All right, cool.
The best Phlox episode is the one where one of his wives is on the ship.
Oh my god,
definitely.
it's so funny.
We can talk about that later too. But
Yeah.
we should probably mosey
That was
into
a
the
good
second
break.
half of this.
I like what we did in there. So
There you
welcome
go.
back. We now return to the topic of established IPs with the following question.
Yes.
Yeah, next, so question 4. What is your favorite model or models for how to run established IPs from that list that we talked about before, right? So, play before, play after, and all of those. Andy?
Well, playing in the background of the main events and characters. In Redemption, we also play with the expanded universe, which is also something I didn't know a lot about, but I had to hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise in order to understand my own character's backstory. And Bob just corrected my spelling of Plagueis because I didn't know it.
Okay.
what I
Thank you.
That
Now
was
I know
hilarious, Bob. So that it helps create dramatic tension because you as the player and the audience may know where the big things are happening, but the characters have no clue. You know, we met Anakin Skywalker briefly and we all kind of hated him. And that's funny because we all know that Anakin goes Darth and the characters don't. But it also means that you have to approach those big canon moments a little bit more carefully because they're going to affect you. Whether, you know, whether you have an audience or not, it'll affect your game. So, you know, if you've been paying attention to Redemption, you know, there's a huge plot point coming up, in the timeline. And we have been talking about how to deal with it for months. And I'm not going to ruin it for anybody, but, it rhymes with Schmorder Schmixty Schmix. And based on who we have on our crew and a Jedi, that's going to affect us. Yeah. So we have to figure out how do we handle that in a way that is appropriate for both the canon and for our characters. So, yeah. How about you, Jerry?
All right. To be honest, as much as I've enjoyed playing all the alternate stories with cool rewrites and everything, I just really like story adjacent adventures. We're going to run an adventure that's maybe the Queen City Avengers in the Marvel Universe. Or maybe smugglers in the Outer Rim during the Rebellion, or different heroes trying to stop the armies of Sauron while the hobbits go to Mount Doom, etc., etc. I like those games where you're just like you are. You're story adjacent. You might brush up against something going on in the actual universe at some point, but you're really just adventuring in that greater world. Those are the kinds of games I like to play. I don't mind occasionally hearing about what's going on with the bigger world, or even seeing the effects of our actions. I've had really good GMs who have done something where we do something and you find out, oh, that's why this didn't happen in whatever. You know, that's why there weren't a bunch of ships helping the rebellion at this thing, was because we were busy tying up the Imperials over here instead, or something like that. I just play around with those. So that's pretty much it. Phil?
Yeah, I am very much about playing far away from canon events, or playing in the background. I don't want to mess with continuity, and as I said earlier, I don't like messing with canon. So, the things I want to do is hey, we're gonna play a Star Trek game. Give me the rough era of when you want to play, and then I'm gonna go pick a place that's not near the canon stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you'll pass through a place where the Enterprise has been, or maybe we'll dock at DS9 as a, kind of a special treat kind of thing. But for the most part, no. For the most part, I'm just going to kind of keep you off to the side, and I'm going to have the things happening in parallel. like maybe the Dominion War is going on, which means you're also part of the Dominion War, but it'll be like doing different stuff.
Yeah.
Like I like that. It because one, I like the continuity, but I don't like being confined by it because I don't like having to restrict my players. So the further I can stay away from it, the more they can do stuff where I'm like, yeah, well, who knows? Maybe that did happen. Like maybe they did, like maybe it's the Dominion War and, maybe the players saved a Romulan colony while the Romulans were still, not in the war. Like there's no reason that couldn't have happened. Right. So I'm, let it ride. Let's play. So for me, that's the most comfortable way to play. Like once you start involving the main characters, once you start getting like really up close to the canon, then I'm doing like extra work for continuity purposes. And then like, that's not as much fun.
Yeah.
Hey, Bob, how about you?
Everything you just said. Question 5.
Ditto.
I thought based on your previous answers, I was like, oh, you probably lined up pretty close.
I'm right
to this
in there.
as well. Yeah. And we've played in games together. So like when we played Serenity, I don't think we ever saw Firefly.
No, I mean, and honestly, we only had one reference.
Yeah. We encountered some of the bad guys.
Yeah.
Because what's his face with the bowler hat?
Yeah.
Also terrorized us.
Yeah.
I often have trouble playing in established universes as the main characters because it's so tough to make choices you want to make because you know that what you're doing is not going to fall in line with what that character would do.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's
that's always I prefer not to play the main characters if possible for exactly that reason.
My only exception.
Unless you're going off to like Kelvin universe, and
Yes.
if you're essentially recasting.
Well, alternate universes work.
Yep.
Yeah, which is my reason why the one game I can play that in is Marvel. Because if it's like, hey, you're going to play Iron Man, I'll be like, sure, cool, I'll play Iron Man. There's like 17 million different versions of Iron Man in the comics. Like even the Tony Stark Iron Man decade to decade is a vastly different character.
Yeah.
Like there's no calling, like that's not what Tony would do. It'd be like, at some point he would have.
This Tony would.
Let me show you this comic from this year, and Tony did just that.
Yeah, I think it's way like playing in the MCU would be harder than just playing in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. All right. Our next question is a 2-part question. So what I'd like to ask you is, first, what's an IP that you'd be a terrible player for because of your love of the IP? And the second thing, what IP has a game that doesn't do it to you, despite the fact that you like the IP? So what IP would you not want to play because you'd be a very terrible player? And what IP is a world you love, but the system's not good? So,
well, don't say not good, but it's not for you.
Not for you.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Marvel universes, I don't think I can play in any. I don't care if it is an MCU or specifically Marvel, because regardless of where we are or what we're doing, I am going to try to bang Thor, Captain Marvel, and or Dr. Darcy Lewis. I am just a fangirl. Those are my top 3 right now. So regardless of plot,
that's fair.
Those are the 3. If you're going to give me an opportunity to play in this game, or to play in this IP, that's what I want to do. So if you don't give me an opportunity for that, I might just ruin your game to try and find it. So that is probably what I would be.
I see an Andy Fox Thor Captain Marvel love triangle going on right now. So
hey, I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't written that fan fiction.
That seems on par for those characters, actually. So,
well, yeah, Dr. Darcy Lewis is a new addition to this.
You just dropped Spider-Woman right into the middle of that.
And yeah, I mean, there's
which version?
There's lots, depending on what what year you ask Andy. Like there are other people who may or may not be in that mix too. So totally so the IP that I love, but I don't think I can play in, is Doctor Who.
Huh?
I love Doctor Who. And from what I've heard about the game, like, it sounds like a really solid game, but I just don't know how to share the spotlight with the Doctor. I've run a Doctor Who game in Fate. and I couldn't get around it. So what it ended up being was a bunch of different companions getting together to save the Doctor, because I was like, how do you compete with being the Doctor?
There's actually a game out there called Companions. It's a PBTA game where the whole premise is you're all the companions of the Doctor left behind trying to solve problems because of that. And
Yeah.
it takes the Doctor out of the story. Then it's easy to play. But yeah, I can see the same thing.
Yeah.
That if you have a Time Lord, that's it.
Yeah, if you want to play a Doctor Light game, that would be, I think that would work.
I will tell you that the premise of the Doctor Who game is very close to the premise of the Indiana Jones game from TSR, where I can't remember, either no one plays Indiana Jones or everyone else has to play the sidekicks. I can't.
Everybody else plays the side. Everybody
plays the sidekicks, right?
No. One person plays Indy and everybody else plays the sidekick.
Right, which seems terrible because, like, there's Indy and the rest of them feel like sidekicks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As bad as that premise is, the game system itself was even worse.
Oh yeah, I do remember. I had a copy.
Put me down for not playing that either.
Never. No. It's yeah. There's a reason why they've never done anything with it since then.
It's the reason why it's the burnt piece inside the Diana Jones Award.
Yeah.
All right. Enough with the tangent.
We
gotta rotate this back on topic.
Sorry.
I don't think honestly that I would be a terrible player for anything because of how much I love the IP. Like I can just split that off and like whatever. I don't think that would be a problem for me. So that won't be an issue. Most of the Marvel superhero games fell short for me because you could not play Spider-Man and have him feel like Spider-Man. It wasn't until the Saga edition came out where it really kind of felt like Spidey. And I think, I'm trying to remember if I ever actually got to throw dice with the, Marvel Heroic, that Cortex-like version. But yeah, all the ones prior to Saga edition, it was like, you know?
Well, what does playing Spider-Man feel like?
Well, like, if you read a Spider-Man comic, he's bouncing off the walls. He's very agile. He almost never gets hit unless he, like somebody catches him unawares with something like seriously, like, because
the
scorpion's
Spider-Sense tail, right?
Like there's all these little bits, and you could not do that with that character because it's kind of OP in a lot of ways.
Think of the fight between Spider-Man and Bucky and Falcon in Civil War.
Yeah.
Where he's basically just owning them for the entire time. They get off on like a surprise thing on him, but he immediately reacts and takes them out because of it. That's that is Spider-Man in every encounter.
Yeah.
Are these carbon fiber?
And that thing does not obey the laws of physics. Yeah, so that's my answer. Jerry.
All right. Like Bob, there are no IPs that I love so much I wouldn't play in them. I have even played in many IPs that I don't like just because I like the player as a GM, or I trust the GM to take something I don't like and make it fun. So I don't. There's not an IP out there that I feel. I don't write a love letter to anything out there. So I don't feel anything that is so beholden to me that you can't change it or do something with it. I'm not going to be upset with you if you do something with it. Now, as far as games that don't do it for you, Phil's going to talk about one of them. So I'll say D6 Star Wars. I never liked the system. I never liked D6 Star Wars. That was another one where it was basically the Jedi and then everybody else hanging out with them.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I didn't think the system was all that great. I didn't like the way it was put together. I didn't think it captured any of the feel of the Star Wars, like playing in Star Wars. That being said, I really love the setting and I love what they did. Because if you know the history of the role-playing game, they just let them into the Star Wars warehouse, and a lot of what we now know as canon came from the role-playing game because they're like, yeah, we can't call this guy Hammerhead. What's his real name? And they just kept so much of what is now canon came from the role-playing game. And so I love that. I just love that entirely. But I've played D6s. I've played a couple of different D6 games. It is not a system I like at all. So I'd like to see them do something else. And look, they did. So Phil?
For me, look, I am, unless you are like going to be the same level of Trek nerd as me, I will be your nightmare player. Like I think I could play in John Carney's Star Trek game. I feel like I would be in a safe space with somebody who could, keep pace with me in Star Trek. But like there was a time where Chris was running Star Trek and he's like, "Oh, I'm running the new Star Trek game," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's nice."
Yeah.
And I was I can't play this with him.
We will not be friends if I play.
No, he's not like, I'm not going to be happy. He's not going to be like, there's no happiness in this. Yeah. So, and I'm okay with that, right? Like I do have I have a huge love letter, which is like a nicer way of saying hard on for Star Trek. And it's okay. Like I'm okay with it. And I'm okay enough with it that like, I will just acknowledge, like, I will be a bad player in this game. I should not play this game. Like, I should run this game, but also I need to, I'm nervous when I run it for the first time that like, I don't want to be like a dick GM about the whole thing. Like I need to run it and I need to let go a little of it, but I don't want to like lose what it is to be Star Trek. So, I want to run a Star Trek game. I don't want it to turn into the Kelvin universe.
Right.
Not that I have anything totally against the Kelvin universe other than one point against it. But I'd be shooting for one thing. I don't want it to drift into the other one. Yeah, if I was starting with a Kelvin universe and was like, hey, we're going to play, action adventure Star Trek, that would be fine.
We're going to play Star Trek Tokyo Drift.
Yeah, no, and that's fine, right? Like, it really is Star Trek Tokyo Drift. It's just not my Star Trek because it solves problems by punching and shooting things, where my Star Trek is diplomacy, negotiation, science, engineering, right? Like,
we're going to science the fuck out of this problem.
Yeah, like to me, one of the I think one of the episodes of DS9 that epitomizes my feel for Star Trek is Terok Nor. Because O'Brien has to fight the drugged out Garrick, but he doesn't fight him.
Yeah.
Right.
Like he out engineers him in the end.
Yes.
Yeah. And that to me was like, and as much as I love the Dominion War, to me though, that's like the quintessential Star Trek right there. Okay. So that's the one I would be a terrible player in. The one that I love I enjoy the IP, but would not enjoy playing is Middle Earth / One Ring. I like Middle Earth, to a point. But fantasy, despite how much fantasy I have run in the last year, fantasy has never been my first love. So I'm happy to watch. I'm happy to watch the Lord of the Rings movies, not the Hobbit one. And I would reread Lord of the Rings again. I haven't read it in decades, but if you were like, oh, I'm running this game, I'd be like, maybe. You would lure me more in with the system than the setting. Yeah. So if you're like, hey, we're playing the Free League Lord of the Rings, I would be like, yeah, I think I would like to see that because I like Free League games. You could probably lure me in that way rather than like, hey, wouldn't you like to, play a Hobbit? Like, nah, not really.
No.
And there's nothing against it. Like, I love the movie. I mean, I love the movies. I'm getting sent all fired up by saying
yeah, don't do that. I'm going to start hearing yelling.
I love the movies. Like, before the MCU, that was like one of my go-to jams.
I prefer the movies to the books.
Oh, okay. Look.
Oh, God.
She's going to come busting in here like the Kool-Aid man. She'll be like on Zoom in a second.
Okay, so we should probably move on.
Actually, I gotta say to Phil. I just gotta say to Phil one thing, Phil. As much as you love Star Trek, you can't appreciate sabotage to your original Vulcan. That's all I'm gonna say.
Fucking Kelvin universe, man.
And I totally blew that Star Trek reference. I should have called it Star Trek Enterprise Drift. That would have been
Enterprise.
Yes.
Okay. Question 6.
So, question 6.
You're going to
What?
get me kicked out of my place, Jerry.
Why would you be affected by this, Andy? You're an innocent bystander. Anyway.
I'm not correcting him.
What established IP is out there that game designers need to get cracking on creating a game for, and what system would you like to see it in?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I mean, first of all, I want to see some of the 80s cartoons. Gatchaman, Battle of the Planets, He-Man, Thundercats, that kind of thing.
He-Man's coming.
I'd like to see them done in a decent game system. But the big one, and I'll be honest, I've run it myself in several systems, I would love to see an Adventures of the Galaxy Rangers role-playing game.
I don't even know what that is.
And I'm not sure
I
what
don't
system.
know what that is.
It was an American anime basically from the late 80s, about basically a bunch of aliens come to Earth and say, hey, guess what? Years ago, people grabbed humans and scattered them throughout the universe. We need Earth to be the homeland to kind of bring them back in. We'll give you technology to go hyperspace if you'll help us fight off this evil empire that's coming. And then they take a bunch of what are basically mutants and make them a bunch of special troubleshooters called the Galaxy Rangers. One is a cyborg, one's a super telepath, one's can change shape, and one can basically control computers, and he's also a secret agent you find out later on down the line. But it was an American cartoon that had, the first season was very episodic, but the second season there were a lot of like continuing stories. They built a lot of mythology to it. It was very 80s, and sometimes the writers just went, we're just going to have a silly episode, and we're going to have the entire thing come down to a rap battle at the end, kind of thing. But it was cowboys in space, and laser guns, and superheroes, and the low-level superheroes, and interesting character plots. For the first season, the doc, who was the doctor and also the computer guy, whenever he did something unusual, like, where'd you learn that? Oh, this is Abercrombie's Charm School. And he would go on and on about this. Well, in season 2, you get to Mrs. Abercrombie's Charm School, and you find out that it's actually a school for Black Ops agents. And the reason he's so good at all this spy stuff is that he went there to be charming and came out as basically a super spy. And there's a lot of that. There's ancient creatures that are very, like there's this undead creature called the Scarecrow. There's a bunch of people trying to make clones of people. So it was a very complicated universe. It was a lot of fun. It was 2 seasons. It was very 80s, so it's got a lot of the 80s problems and stuff. Yeah. But they also weren't afraid to occasionally, like, sometimes gun battles ended with somebody dying, which was a big thing for American cartoons back then. It had a kick-ass soundtrack, and it had Jerry Orbach as the main character, so, you know. But just, it made for a good story, especially since the heroes were called, Jerry Orbach was on, he's the father from Dirty Dancing. He's the one who put Baby in a Corner.
He was on like about 1 million seasons of Law and Order.
Well. Yeah, you'd recognize.
He was the voice of the Candlestick and Beauty and the Beast.
It was Beauty and the Beast. He was the candle in Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, he was Lumiere?
Yeah.
He was Lumiere, yes. So
okay, that is a reference I understand.
There you go. It was a good show, and what's one of the fun things about it is that these are the Series 5 Rangers. They never told you what happened to Series 1 through 4. So it's easy to slot the players in as either a group that didn't make it that far or some other part of that universe who often do other troubleshooting things. And so it plays think of like a Spider-Man level science fiction superhero game, you know. So anyway, that's what I would love to see. Phil?
For me, the John Wick universe. There are hints that there is this cool second world of assassins that I would very much like to see explored. Just the way that like the coins work, the way like the services, like in John Wick 2, like when he needs to go get guns, like he meets the sommelier who like takes him through, like, you know, that whole montage where he goes to the tailor to get his suit and all that. Like there is a whole world of these like globe-trotting like assassins doing jobs and like being badass and like, you know, paying, you know, to have their murders covered up with coins or whatever. Like I want all of this. Like I want to be in that. I want to be in that world that, you know, at the table, so to speak. I would very much be into a John Wick universe.
Yeah.
Dessert.
Yes. Oh, dessert. Oh my! I can't tell you how many times I have watched on YouTube that montage scene. I love that scene.
Some good shit right there. I'm with you.
How about you, Bob?
For me, they're making it. The Last Airbender.
John
Wick. The Last Airbender, The Legend of Korra. That I'm looking forward to what they're doing with that, and I think PBTA is a good fit for it. So I think they're on the right track, and I'm very much looking forward to what happens with that.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Andy?
I want a new She-Ra game.
There you
go. Yes.
Not only do I want a new She-Ra game, I want options of playing the main characters and options of creating my own characters.
Mm-hmm.
And given the new She-Ra, there's a lot of different time you can play with. They mention a few times that there was a first Princess Alliance that fell apart, so you could play that. You could play pre-Mara or post-Mara. The princess is trying to figure it out. There's I believe a graphic novel that tells us about, there was a fire princess at one point. Like, there's just a lot of room, I think, to play. Mm-hmm. And I at some point would love to play Adora and have somebody else play Catra and have that dynamic. Like, I would love to play that dynamic with somebody. Because
so part of this is you also want to play Thirsty Sword Lesbians again.
I mean, yes, I played Thirsty Sword Lesbians, but yes, I would like to play Thirsty Sword Lesbians, but with these particular characters.
Yeah.
The other big one, and Senda helped me flesh this out because I was basically like, WandaVision, but what does that mean? And so Senda pointed out, well, we want an emotional supers game that's like Masks for adults. It's like Masks or Monster Hearts, but it's for these adult superheroes. And you get to play these really emotional stories. And I would like that. Senda would like that. I think a lot of us would like that.
It feels like an idea like that, yeah.
I have wanted for a long time, I have wanted them to make the Masks adult, like the adults version, where all the heroes are fucked up from being superheroes. Because for me, one of my favorite things in the MCU was that rather than making Tony Stark an alcoholic, the MCU made Tony Stark a survivor with PTSD.
Oh, yeah.
And his bad actions, like
all
his
of the poor
PTSD
decisions he makes.
Yeah, his PTSD drives one bad decision after another. And I would love to play a game where you were adult superheroes that are flawed as hell because of the things you've been through. I guess that also dovetails with Umbrella Academy would be another.
That would be so fun to play.
Like, I would love to play heroes that are kind of like emotionally messed up for being heroes. Like, oh yeah, I totally saved the planet from being destroyed. I am also now a living disaster with superpowers.
Yes.
Like,
well, and it's also some of those different reasons, get really juicy. Because, you have people like Klaus, who his thing is he can talk to ghosts, and he was traumatized by his adopted father, who did things like locking him in crypts and making him talk to ghosts for hours at a time when he didn't want to. And so he is now a drug addict.
Also
because that's how he deals with it. And yes.
Wanting to avoid his dead boyfriend.
Wanting to avoid his dead boyfriend, but his dead brother's always with him. Like it's so there's that. And then you have Wanda, who lost, the person she was so deeply in love with, and there was nobody there to tether her down, at all.
Yep.
For the record, if this game ever exists, I'm putting Tony in it.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
Just I will put Tony.
You mean
in this
Rainmaker, Tony?
Yes.
He will like a fish to water.
Yes.
He will swim in this concept to no end.
Because there's just so many. There's just so many ways that superheroes get messed up, man. And whether it's causing a lot of collateral damage and, feeling guilty about that, or getting frozen in ice and they've lost the love of their life.
Yeah. So many different ways that could go. Yeah.
I kept yelling at Tony that like just because you need supervision doesn't mean the Avengers do. Yeah. Stop it with this stupid Civil War shit.
Yep.
All right, cool.
We can get you a babysitter, Tony.
Like, yeah. He needs a handler.
Yes, he does.
All right, so
he needs a therapist.
Yeah. A handler and a therapist.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that should bring us over to the conversation corner. So
yeah, that's our wrap up of playing in established IPs with our super guest star.
Yes.
Thanks, 80 Fox.
Thanks for
having me.
Come join us in the conversation corner.
Yeah, let's go.
Oh, okay. Is there room in the corner for me?
Always.
I thought
your family and we're cuddlers, so it all works.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought going to being put in the corner was a bad thing.
Well, only for baby.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
Thank you. Good callback there.
Some of us like to be in the corner. All right, conversation corner. Andy, talk to us about what other things are going on in your life, in life, gaming, the community.
Oh, life, gaming, community. I would like to talk a little bit more about the Voyager journaling game because I think that it's a brilliant idea, and I had trouble with it at first because even though it's, you're playing a lower decks character on Voyager, like that is still so open-ended. Like I really struggled with it at first. And, so the idea is that we're all going to write journals at least once a week, and you can choose any episode or between episodes or whatever. And you choose whether or not you're an ensign, an enlisted crew member, or one of the Maquis who has joined the crew. And of course, they all have different issues. Mm-hmm. And so I wrote the first journal entry, and I was a little kind of like, I kind of get this character. They go by Z. Their name's Zetra Vahino. They're an ensign. They are, They have the self-confidence of a mediocre white man via Barney Stinson, is kind of the tropes I'm pulling on, and is a relief pilot. But after I watched episode 6 yesterday, and for those who haven't maybe gotten around to see it, I will try not to spoil too much. They get a opportunity to potentially write a message home. And so after I watched that, I wrote Z's message home, mm-hmm. and that got me much more in touch with the character, mm-hmm. with who's important to them. And, I had to do a bunch because I chose an alien race I know nothing about, like I do. So I chose being a Bolian.
Okay.
Yeah. They're blue.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm an Andorian in my other Star Trek game. And I was a Duro in Redemption for most of my thing. But I'm a Bothan now, so it's okay. I don't have a thing about blue or teal. I don't think. Maybe. And it seems like it's going to be really fun. And since everybody's posting theirs online, you can read yours. And, obviously since Send and I live together, we've talked about it a little bit. And we're like, we're enemies right now, aren't we? And she's like, yeah, we're going to be enemies. And we'll see where that goes. So we can talk about each other, and that seems like it's going to be kind of like a fun, different way to interact. There's no dice roll. Like it's all about the emotions of these lower deck members who we don't get to see a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
So that's super exciting. And then, yes, we did our first holodeck episode. In the Star Wars Adventures game that I'm in, and it was a 17th century pirating adventure that our doctor made us go on as part of a stress-lowering exercise.
Yeah.
And at one point, it's like, how is this stress-lowering? And particularly our chief engineer was like, I don't understand how this is stress lowering. And then he broke a bottle and started a bar fight, and was like, I get it now. I get it. Stress lowering, and punches a guy in the face. And there was no twist. There was no, the holodeck malfunctions. Which was kind of refreshing. Like we just got to play a holodeck story. instead of, oh my God, we're going to die in this holodeck, which is, every holodeck episode on TNG is no, we're going to die. I also got 100% perfection in Stardew Valley a few weeks ago, and I'm very proud of myself for that.
There you go.
I've spent over 500 hours in that game, which is a lot of time. And I haven't gotten all of the achievements, but I have gotten 100% perfection according to Mr. Key, and that makes me happy. Because there's no, it's a panorama. Like, time has no meaning, work has no meaning, just these arbitrary, levels and stuff. And so, and I've been playing a little bit of Minecraft, to prepare to kind of get back into the swing of things before we launch our next Minecraft season, which is going to be in 1.16. But I'm currently playing in 1.12, just because that was easier. I wanted to play with a few mods that I knew and liked, so.
We should.
Yeah. I signed a contract today to write a curriculum, so that's exciting.
Yeah, there you go.
Even though it's...
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a pandemic and my jobs aren't what I hope they would be right now. I have work, and, I've got my 20-hour week job, and now I've got a contract for some, curriculum writing, so I'm happy about that.
Excellent.
Cool.
Who's next? Bob.
That will be me. So, we talked briefly about Valheim. That really came as a super surprise to me. Chris was like, "Hey, you want to try it out?" And my Friday night game got canceled. And I'm like, "Sure, I'll jump in and we'll try it out. I'll spend $20 on a game I've never played and just do it." Because I trust Chris's judgment. When he says it's like Viking Minecraft, I'm like, "All right, sure." And I launched the game and loaded up a solo instance just to try it out. And it took me a while to grok the controls and how to get stuff done. And I got on chat with on Mumble with Chris, and I'm like, "This game is hella hard." I'm like, "What the hell?" But as soon as I kind of got into the groove, I was like, "All right, I see where this thing slots in." I'm like, "All right. Okay, I'm gonna lose some time to this thing." Though I'm still looking forward to a new Minecraft pack and getting on with the MMPers and bouncing around in some cooperative Minecraft.
Semi-cooperative.
Semi-cooperative, yeah.
Well, too cooperative, we finished the game too quickly.
Yeah.
My favorite part of all that, Bob, is the fact that you said, Chris is like, it's like Viking Minecraft, and then we're building a building about, an hour and a half into the game, and Chris turns to the two of us. It's like, "So, is this what Minecraft is like?" Because he's never played it.
He's never played Minecraft.
Never played it with us, yeah.
We have to get him in.
Yeah, at some point I think we can get him to play at least once for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that Voyager, I'm enjoying the watch. It still has some issues. In the first week's worth of episodes, I ran into one huge problem, which I won't talk about on the mics for spoiler purposes, for somebody that may not have seen it yet for whatever reason. But off the mics, I'm sure the people in this Zoom call can have a conversation about it.
Yes.
What episode?
I can't remember the damn name of it now.
What happened? Which is it?
No,
we'll
don't talk about it later.
Okay.
Don't fall for this. We still got to get through the show.
Okay.
Aww.
We had
it's only 7:50.
Yeah.
There's an after show.
Yeah, we had no Avalon game this week. Streets of Avalon again this week, unfortunately, which is when I played Valheim for the first time. But we did start iHunt on Sunday, which we talked briefly about, and that again didn't disappoint. Not your fault, Jared. That Avalon was canceled. These things happen. But iHunt, I had a moment where when Tony was trying to decide what his character was going to do, I was like, "Oh, you're killing me, Tony," because I had decided prior to the start of the session, actually, when we decided on what the first hunt was going to be, I had already decided that my character is a Peter Parker analog, And instead of getting bitten by a spider and watching his Uncle Ben get killed because he didn't do the right thing, I watched my uncle get killed by a werewolf. And then we decide the first hunt's going to be a werewolf. And I'm like, oh, this is going to go swimmingly. I'm going to have feels about this. And then Tony's like, oh, I think we should talk to this werewolf. And I'm like, no. I'm like,
We
do I
killed
have
the
to
werewolf.
kill Tony's
Where's my
character?
silver knife?
Like, do I have to kill Tony's character too? And Tony's like, no, I just feel like this is where my character is. I'm like, all right. I said, I understand where you're going, but make sure you're going to commit to the bit. And he's like,
we actually popped into a meta discussion about it. I was like, look, I want to make sure that Tony knows what's going on. I don't particularly care if Geo knows what's going on.
Geo can be a little conflicted at first, but I'm like,
this is the pilot episode. Geo can make this bad mistake.
And this
right
could be
here.
the catalyst for Geo to be like, oh, okay. And that's exactly what happened. But I had a moment there where I'm like, oh, God, here we go.
And it's funny because that group has had a habit in games of not solving problems by immediately going to violence. But in iHunt,
that's really
it's monster killing in a gig economy. So you do kill the monsters.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of that's the premise of it. It's not like you negotiate the monsters away or find out that it's, a giant misunderstanding. Like monsters bad.
Yeah. No, if you want to do that, go play Monster Hearts.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Which was okay. So when Tony didn't immediately fall into it, I was like, cool. Let's just make sure that we're one, not off premise on the game. And two, if it's a character thing, then it's a great arc. It's like a great storyline in the pilot episode where Geo's like, I'm totally going to talk to this werewolf. And then it bites him in the shoulder and drops him to the ground. And, he has to get rescued and then spend the next night tied to a chair because no one knows if he's going to turn into a werewolf or not.
And I was perfectly content to be like, I'm just going to take your head off if you start changing into a werewolf. So, all right.
Yeah. It was good.
Just make another character. It's fine.
Yeah.
But it was fun because then his learning experience was after surviving it, he's like, I can totally do this job.
I can totally do this hunting thing. And then I was like, if he's going to go out and hunt, I have to be there to keep him alive. I can't let him loose on the rest of this world without somebody to keep him alive. So
it's great. It's going to work out just fine. It's going to feel like a TV show.
Yep. All right. That's me. Jerry.
All right. For me, it was mostly Valheim and computer games. Pretty much what Bob said, just a lot of fun. I went over it earlier. Starting Voyager. I'd only seen 3 episodes of Voyager and not all the way through any of them, so this was all new to me. And I'm kind of liking some of the characters. Especially some of the characters I didn't think I'd like in the pilot have grown into become interesting characters later on. I'm loving the Doctor.
I love the Doctor.
Will not disappoint.
Yeah. I thought I'd liked him from the beginning, but I didn't like Tom Paris initially, but I like what they do with him. So, ran my Eberron game this weekend, did not have my A game on. And it really suffered for it, but the players carried it. So what happens when you're just not doing things? Right?
It happens.
It happens. And for those who've heard, Friday before I got into Valheim, I had my semi-annual HVAC checkup here at the house where I looked at my furnace and AC, and that went fine. And then as I was leaving, I accidentally knocked the valve off the bottom of my hot water tank and put water all over my laundry room. So I spent most of Friday. Yeah. I spent most of Friday afternoon, keeping the water from coming out and bucketing it away and then buying a new hot water tank. But now we have a new hot water tank, which we were going to replace next year anyway. So it's in, and spent a good chunk of this weekend just making sure everything stayed dry and mold free down there. So this is not the first water incident we've had in the basement. So everything at that end of the basement where the laundry room and the storage room are, everything is an inch off the floor on shelving or something, or it's in a plastic bucket. So nothing got destroyed. Nothing got destroyed. It just some stuff got damp. It's just a case of, get the shop back out and suck all the water up and keep everything dry. But now we have a hot water tank that provides a lot more hot water, and long hot showers are always good. So
there you go.
Good stuff. So Phil?
Yeah, so I did a bunch more graphic design this weekend. I got I finished getting my iHunt stuff together for the virtual tabletop for Roll20. But then I did like a whole bunch of stuff for the Sprawl. Like, you guys haven't even seen yet all the shit I made. I made for the Sprawl VTT. So like, you guys had seen, I think the week before I had done a whole bunch of corporate logos for the corporations. And then I now did a tracker for, the heat, the corporate threat tracker, which is a thing like you to keep track of stuff. And, I hacked in my own rules for, the health of the city. And I did a tracker for that. And like, I have all these pages now laid out, in Roll20, so that like, you know, like it just, I think it came out nice. I'm waiting for Thursday. The players will get to see it when I give them a tour of the VTT. But I had a lot of fun putting them together, and I'm really liking Affinity. Like, I'm very much. I was hopeful when I bought Affinity that it would line up with Adobe, and I am by no means a power user in Adobe, so Affinity like more than covers the features I need to pull off my you know, the level of graphic design I'm capable of, not a Tim Jones level of graphic design, but you know, a competent arranging shapes on a page level of graphic design easily. Like, I made the transition to it with almost no effort. And I think I'm going to say I think the game will look good when we go to play it. Like, it will physically look good when we play. So I was excited about that. That was a lot of fun. I watched more Enterprise. Season 3 has been tough for me. It's super dark.
Yeah.
And I tend to like dark stuff, but I'm just like, oh man, I'm like, they need to change, like, they need a beat change and soon.
Yes.
Because I'm like 10 or 12 episodes in on the season on 3, and I'm like, this Xindi thing is heavy.
It's like new Battlestar Galactica dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I liked seasons 1 and 2. Like, I didn't think I was going to like Enterprise, but seasons 1 and 2 like grew on me pretty quickly. 3 was hard, but boy, I just got to this one episode in 3, the one with the clone, and I was God. I'm like, this is some fine ass writing. Yep. This is the ethical dilemma this is the ethical dilemmas I have come to Star Trek for.
That is a staple Star Trek thing.
Yeah. Yes. So I was very excited for that.
I have to take time off sometimes. I can watch like 2 to 3 episodes, and then I'm going to be like, yeah, okay, I need to do something else. Let me go watch How I Met Your Mother.
For season 3, absolutely. Like, season 3, I had to stop watching it for I watched a couple episodes, and then I was like, I got to go watch something upbeat for a little while. Like, this is heavy. I liked it better when it was like, so far, seasons 1 and 2 I like better than 3. We'll see how 3 finishes out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there is a big important thing that happens on Earth that changes the very dynamic of the mission.
It's a big tone changer. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty heavy. Anyway, I got Schmitty to release to me the mod pack, the 116 mod pack, so I could start playtesting it.
Yes.
Since you guys are off playing Valheim and I can't play Valheim because I have a Mac, I started playing the 116 mod pack for testing. I have found a couple little things. One I got to address with Schmitty, which I think is a little more, slightly more problematic. I don't know if it's problematic. I think it's going to require a slightly heftier fix. 2 items in the game have the same recipe.
Ooh.
And it won't let you choose between them. It only makes one of them. So I think we have to do we're going to have to go in and hack a recipe, so that they're unique recipes. And I found one other setting config that I had to change to get some other things to work. But all in all, I've got 116 running, and I've been playing it for a couple nights, and I forgot because I had stopped playing Minecraft for a while. And this is if you've listened to the show for any length of time, this will not come as a surprise to you. I stopped playing Minecraft and I got sad, started playing Minecraft again, and I started feeling better. I don't know when we're going to kick 116 off because you guys are doing Valheim, and it seems like it's not fair to Chris to kill your Valheim game by kicking off 116, and you don't have infinite time to play both games. So I'm just going to sit on 116 for a little while and play through it and kind of check it all out. but I have to keep playing something. So
Yeah.
it is definitely not good for my mental health not to be playing something in the evenings.
Mhm.
So,
Hey, if you need another playtester, I can playtest.
oh, if you want, I mean, like after I fix these couple things,
Yeah, I've played 1.16 vanilla, so I have that sort of basis.
yeah, I will say this. Some of the mods in there are pretty fun. The Spartan weapons mod actually makes weapons that do different things. Like I have a halberd that I can kill creepers without getting them to trigger.
Ooh, that's
Like you
cool.
have reach
It's a
weapons.
game changer.
Yeah,
That's cool.
you just and they have a boomerang that's cheap to make that works pretty close to the original boomerang.
Nice.
So I have a boomerang and a halberd, and I'm running around killing stuff with it. But Spartan Weapons is better than I thought it was going to be.
Cool.
Anyway, I'm still exploring the pack a little. I've been messing with some of the new mods in it, and kind of, getting it along. But like I said, I stumbled onto this one it's a minor problem, but it kind of knocks out part of them. It knocks out one of the mods, and I have to talk to Schmitty about how we fix that.
Yeah.
Because we have two there. It's the exact same recipe for two items. And when you go to make it, it makes one item, but not the other.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and I think that we can just go into the mod pack and change, because I've seen other mods. I've seen other people do it where they can go in and tweak a recipe.
Mm-hmm.
And if we literally just add one thing to this other recipe, we would be fine. Like add a stick.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I've been doing that. And again, I talked about iHunt. And I'm getting my second vaccination shot on Monday,
Yes, very good.
which I'm very excited about.
Yay.
Which is my birthday.
Okay.
Bob's birthday is Friday. Are you doing anything? I mean, and I know we can't have a party, but are you planning on anything? Are you treating yourself?
I
Are you
took the day off of work.
nice?
My mother is making me dinner and a birthday cake and then bringing it over and dropping it off for me.
Nice.
She wanted to have a restaurant deliver a meal to me. And I was like, don't spend money on a restaurant meal with exorbitant delivery fees from DoorDash or whoever. And
Sure.
and then it's going to show up cold and, it's going to probably show up cold anyway, but it's all going to be reheatable. And the cake is cake, so I haven't had.
But it's mom cooking,
and it's mom cooking. And I'm like, as long as you don't mind putting a little time in to do the cooking, I would much rather have that than to have you spend money.
Yeah.
And do that. So she's like, yeah, no problem. So I'm like, cool. So she's gonna give me one of my favorite of her meals. I get shit for this because we should be talking about this in the after show.
Okay. Well, I mean, we'll save that part for the after show. But all right, so you're taking a day off.
Yeah.
Mom's bringing you some food and cake. That's awesome.
And
I'm actually
Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, I'm actually. Oh yeah, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Yeah, I'm actually. So I'm co-opting your birthday.
Yeah.
Because I have no idea what's going to happen after I get my COVID shot. Plus, my birthday's on a Monday.
Yeah.
So
take the Friday.
Right. So I'm just gonna I'm celebrating that weekend too. So my choice was I am gonna go pick it up myself because I don't want to wait for it by delivery. But I'm gonna go order Fat Bob's.
There you go.
I'm gonna go order some ribs and some brisket and stuff, and I'll just basically wait outside. It's curbside delivery. I'll just pull up, get it. It's not gonna be super hot by the time I get it home, but it's Fat Bob's and fuck it.
And in honor of this momentous occasion,
we're having ribs.
Yeah.
Yes.
My birthday is in 2.5 weeks, so go Aries.
Yes, Aries for the win. I will say this, and this is a sign of my faltering mental health, is that part of me is secretly wishful that I get a side effect.
Because it'll force you to take a break.
Yeah, I was oh man, if I could just if I could just be exhausted on Tuesday,
I've got
I could just
symptoms.
I could just not go to work.
Yeah.
Right? Like the other day when Tony said that they had a power outage at his office, and I was jealous. And I was man, I would love to have a power outage.
Yeah.
Man, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But that stuff never happens because, my data centers are all dual powered with diesel backups and all that. They don't power outage. So anyway,
Yeah.
it's probably a sign that I'm not doing well, that I'm secretly wishing for side effects so that I would have some time off. And honestly, like, I'm like, oh man, wouldn't it be just great if I was exhausted for a couple days?
Yeah.
Like, and had to take time off and just sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway, but Monday, I took Monday off because obviously I have to go get my shot. So I actually have my birthday off as well. I do not have Friday off. Friday, I'm doing a regular day's worth of work. And then Monday I'm taking off to drive to Syracuse and get my shot, get home before I turn into a spike protein factory again and set off my immune system, and then just ride it out.
Cool.
Which is why, again, we're not recording Pandas on Monday. We're not doing Misdirected Mark on Tuesday. So I get a little bit of a break, even if I have to go to work on Tuesday. So,
all right.
Anyway, we should probably wrap up and get out of here. So before we do, Andy Fox, tell people where they can find you on the internets.
You can find me on Twitter. That's where I'm most active, at Crafty DM. I recently unlocked myself, so yes, I have come out of the lockedness. So you can actually follow me just if you want to.
Cool.
Redemption Podcast is at redemptionpodcast.com or on your favorite podcatcher app. She's a Super Geek has backlog, is available at sasgeek.com. What else? I am on TikTok, but I rarely make videos. So
I'm also on TikTok and never make videos.
Are you on TikTok as the Crafty GM?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am. So you might, although if you friend me, you might get some stuff on your timeline and be like, hey, why do I have this? And be like, oh, it's because I followed Andy. Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
I'm still getting weird stuff. I don't know where it came from on my TikTok. So
that's probably me.
Yeah, if you pull up the bottom menu, it'll tell you like why you're getting it. Or if somebody else, like one of your friends, liked it.
Okay.
And they're like, we assumed you would, and you're like, nah.
Perhaps
be like,
we'll
not
have
interested.
a TikTok 101 in the after show.
Okay.
All right.
Roll us out of here, Bob.
Shout-outs. You know what time it is? It's time for the Royal Court again.
The Royal Court.
The Royal Court. So, thank you to Andrew Dacey, the Warden of Whiskies. Andy Olson, the Duke of Dice. The newly anointed Queen's Witch, Chromatic Chameleon.
Hey!
Craig,
Welcome.
the Lord of One Name. Eric Bontz, the Duke of Gators, and the Lord of Beefness. No, those are not both titles. Only one of them is an official title.
Which one?
The Duke of Gators.
Duke of Gators is
The Lord of Beefness is a nickname. Because the beefness. GM Gerrymander, the Lord of the After Show. Jesse.
Wait.
What?
That's him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, you can buy your way onto the show.
Yes.
I don't know why people are surprised about that.
Yes.
You totally can buy a spot on the show.
Totally can. We can be bought. Jesse Edmond, the Royal Doctor.
I didn't buy my way onto the show.
Jim of Jim Loves Games, the Royal Merchant Emeritus. John C. LeMay, the Guard at the End of the World. Evil John Carney, the Court Necromancer. Kevin Lovecraft, the Royal Beard. Richard Wyatt, Captain of the Royal Airship Fleet. Schmitty, the Keeper of the Labyrinth. Tiberius Starcrash Smith, still one of the best names ever, the Baron of Britannia. And one of the other best names ever, Todd Crapper, the Prophet of Probability. Thank you to all of those people, and thanks to everyone for listening tonight.
If you are free on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's Time, or otherwise known as Fox Time, come join us live on Twitch, where you can chat with other listeners in the chat room for life and ask us the occasional question.
And if you cannot make it to the live show, check out our podcast each week, wherever you get your podcasts. And take us to some of the other shows of the Misdirected Mark Network, such as Mastering Dungeons, Bone Storm Obsidian, the FM Gamers, Hannah's Talking Games, the Gnomecast, John Clue Hustle, The Lounge, Bonus Experience, and back episodes of She's a Super Geek. You can and should also check out our sibling podcasts, Tabletop Bellhop, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming and BS. Now,
after you have picked your IP and before you pitch it to your players, leave us some feedback. You can reach us directly at the old-fashioned emails, as the kids say, mmp@misdirectedmark.com. Hit us up on Twitter. The show and the network is at Misdirected Mark. I have no idea where Bob is on this
I'm
grid.
still in the same spot I always was.
Oh, okay. Very good. Robert M. Everson.
Yep.
Is it still
Yep.
GM, Gerrymander?
And then farther
and
over
I'm
from
DNA
him
Phil.
is Handy
Okay.
Fox. All right, gang.
And there you go.
Yeah. If you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaigns. MMP, Mastering Dungeons, and Pandas Talking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. Zhenghu Hustle is at patreon.com/Zhenghu Hustle, and Bonus Experience is at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. Patrons of MMP, Mastering Dungeons, and Pandas Talking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, which we haven't done one in a long time, the Bamboo Lounge, and other special releases.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
We
We out.